Welcome back to Cossy Arsenal Podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. I'm with with Glenn in the studio, and I'm going to dive into the latest around Arsenal. It's the Arsenal Total Access Show. We dive into lots of stories that are happening within the last 24 hours on Cossy's Arsenal Podcast. So hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast as well, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. A couple of topics for us to dive into with Glenn. Of course, you can find him on the Glenn Kitely Everything Arsenal YouTube channel. We've done a very big masterpiece on whether Arsenal are really better than last campaign. So if you want to watch that debate, watch it on YouTube, Glenn Kitely, Everything Arsenal. In this one, I'm going to be diving into the question: are Arsenal now really genuine title challengers? Are we genuinely going to be speaking in terms of the title? Are we going to be one of the clubs that are going to be leading the rest when it comes to who wins it? And the end, we'll be talking about the injury crisis, Jurrien Timber, the speculation that it could come back in January, and how much of a boost that could actually be when it comes to, Arsenal title race, title hopes, and winning silverware as well. And could actually the William Saliba, injury, Leandro Trossard injury, and all these injuries, including Bukayo Saka, could they deter us from winning the title? And we'll end up with the January transfer speculation. Joao Pedro linked with Arsenal, Quinton Timber linked with Arsenal, and of course we'll talk about the big man Ivan Toney. But before we get into it, Glenn, welcome back to the channel, bro. It's been a long time, but we are happy to have you back.
I'm so happy to be back. Another season where hopefully we are going to win the big thing. So happy to be back on with the audience. So can't wait to hear what to talk about. Get
Yeah,
through it.
absolutely, absolutely. Make sure you join us in the comment box below, guys, by giving us your thoughts about the topics. Like I said, 3 topics for 1 hour. It is an action-packed show. And straight away, let's get into it. Glenn, we beat Manchester City over the weekend. It was a good performance, like one of those performances where you have everything apart from the goals. The rest of the things we did very well. The rest of the game was actually sports on. Everything was absolutely sports on, and Arsenal are now flying. We are cruising, you would say, on top of the table with Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want us to be on top of the table with Tottenham. There's nothing to do. They've had a very fantastic start, and I think that leaves the question: have we now opened up a 3-man, 4-man title race? And is Arsenal genuinely part of that title race?
I think we've always been. I think going into the season, we expected to, like, if we went into the season and then after 2 months we were not in the title race, we'd have been like, come on, like after last season
Yeah,
we've improved
yeah.
the likes of Declan Rice in the team and we're not in the title race. I was very surprised, some people, some Man United fans, some Man United channels and Tottenham fans, they were like, you know what, Arsenal, they're going to finish 6th and 7th. And I was like, how? And
Yeah.
during the preseason, during the transfer window, people are like, every other team will improve. Chelsea will improve, Liverpool will improve, Tottenham will improve, they'll buy players. And I was like, so Arsenal doesn't have money to buy players or
Yeah, I
what?
mean,
Because
that was the big question.
yeah, I expect us to buy players as well. Now you might say, obviously, the injury to someone like a team at the beginning of the season can like cost you or hurt you a little bit. But he wasn't in our back for last season. I don't think
Yeah,
our
true.
back four was a problem until like Saliba got injured. So he needed to maybe replace Xhaka, and then maybe some people wanted a striker. I needed another midfielder, but I still felt we had a stronger squad than last season. Last season, at the beginning of the campaign, we still had players like Lokonga in the lineup. People were not really big fans of him until like January. I think that's when he was at Arsenal. We had many players, like many, let's say, average players still on the bench and players who needed to leave, like Holding, no disrespect to him. But right now, I'm looking at our bench and I'm like, yes, this player can come on, this player can come on, that one can come on as well. And when you have players like Martinelli, Trossard, Saka, you have to be in a title race. So the only team, as I said at the beginning of the season confidently, if Arsenal finish above Man City, we win the title. I don't think there's any other team that can finish above those two. Yes, Liverpool have improved. I didn't expect them to be this good, but it looks like they're back. They've improved their midfield as well. Didn't expect Tottenham to be this good, obviously, with Ken leaving. But you never know, what if Son gets an injury, Madison gets an injury? I don't think they'll be that good if one of those players gets injured. But for us, we've seen that we can win a game without Saka. We've been without Martinelli for 6 games. We won games without him as well. So I think we have a very good squad. And the truth is, yes, we might have bottled it last season, whatever, but we learned from it. The players learned from it. The manager learned from it. Even the fan base, they know how to control our emotions, maybe through certain situations. We've learned from it as well. Liverpool did it in 2017, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
They were so close to winning the title. The very next in the COVID season, Liverpool won it. So you have to learn from experience. We've seen which games we made mistakes, which games like West Ham away, Liverpool away, how to maybe manage a lead better. Arteta's kind of approached games differently this season, maybe more control, don't give the opponent too many chances. I've not recently checked the stats, but around 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think we're the team that maybe number 2 in terms of shots on target faced. Like we don't give the other team a lot of shots to
Yeah.
we don't allow them a lot of shots, and you've seen it against Man City as well. They only had 4 shots, the least they had under Guardiola since Guardiola came. So I like the way you control games. So I definitely expect us to be in the title race, and if we finish above Man City, we are going to win it. I still stick with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when it started the season, I said this, and I will still stick to my point. I also said it to you on your channel. If Arsenal this campaign get to 90 points, it will be only Man City. And I predicted Arsenal to go up to 90 points. It was 85 last campaign, and I thought we really did very well. There were a couple of games where I thought we could have done better. Brighton at home, Newcastle at home, Brentford at home. At the Goodson Park probably as well. But I still back Arsenal to get up to 90 points. Whether we win the title, that depends on Man City. How good they will be. They've started off very well, by the way. People really do undermine them, by the way. But
Yeah.
they had started off very well. They've not drawn a single game this campaign. They've lost 2 and won the first 6. So that is 18 points for them. So in my opinion, we are real title contenders. We are actually there. And there is that statistic that you actually read to me. That Arsenal have actually collected more points this campaign from their first 8 games as compared to last campaign. It was really it was it made me believe, because kind of the way we played this campaign is not as satisfying, on the pitch as we were last campaign. Last campaign, it was fluid. Every team we played in the first 20 games literally bowed down. Every team, even games where we didn't get the result or we didn't win, we looked very good. But and I want to ask you this: do you think we are playing a dangerous game? Like for example, the Nottingham Forest result, the Crystal Palace result, which was again very very narrow, and then the Manchester United game that we won late. Are we playing a dangerous game as compared to last season, where 20 minutes in you're 2-0 up and you're winning games? Right? Do you think it's kind of a dangerous game, or do you think it's just a different season and teams are just much better?
Different season. Let me just reread those 2 stats. So last season we had 21 points. At this time, right now we have 20.
Yeah.
But the 8 teams that we played last season compared to right now, like for example, Man City, we lost to them last season, we've beaten them. Everton, we lost to them last season, we've beaten them. And Fulham, Tottenham, we drew after we beaten them. So I think this season we have 20 points against those teams, and last season we had 18 points. So in terms of compared to those 2 teams, all those teams we played last season compared to this season, we have more points than last season. So I don't think it's a dangerous game. I think yes, maybe people want us to like play fluid football like we did against like Leicester at the beginning of last season, where we scored 4 goals and the football was amazing, or against Bournemouth where we had like we were 2-0 up within the first 10 minutes. Yes, it was good. But I don't think we've actually played that bad this season, honestly.
Yeah.
A game like Nottingham Forest, I think we took the foot off the pedal. Yes, we were 2 goals up and then we got too comfortable. That I agree. Maybe we should have gone for a 3rd goal, 4th goal, because right now we're only 1 goal away from being top of the table. Maybe scoring those goals would have helped us. A game like Crystal Palace, we were down to 10 men for like 40 minutes. I think we did well to get that 1-0 win. All those teams in the top 10, not all of them are going to go to Crystal Palace and win, believe me. Going away to Everton, for us, it's always been hard. Like playing Man City, it's always been hard. Tottenham, I really wanted us to win, but we didn't really like draw the game because we were bad. I literally think like we drew that game because we gave them a goal. So if we are to cut off mistakes, last season, this time we had considered 8 goals. We've now considered 6 goals this season. And from those 6 goals, at least 5 of them are mistakes. Fulham, mistake. Saka, I think, and Zinchenko. Man United, mistake. Havertz. If you look at Tottenham, mistake. Jurrien. And most of those goals have been considered at home. So we're not conceding goals. We're not allowing the other team many chances, which is good. I've not watched a game this season and I'm like, wow, this other team is getting so many chances. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. No, it's always coming from ourselves mistakes. So the difference between now, this season and last season we were giving the other team, yes, we was creating more chances, yes, But in terms of giving the other team chances and shots on target and shots off target, all that, we are defending better. That is why we are able to like keep it down to 4 shots on goal by Man City.
Yeah.
Man City having 4 shots in a game, that is crazy. Man City
Yeah,
usually have
it's
4 shots
unheard
like
of.
within
It's
1 minute.
purely unheard of. Yeah.
Like I was so happy that like when I saw that and I was like, wow, Man City have actually not taken the chance like shots. Then people are like, oh, it's because Man City did not play well. No, it's because the likes of Declan Rice and Saliba did not allow them to play well, did not give them those chances. Tomiyasu after he had looked very lively for like 5 minutes. So it's up to us as well to make it look better. And as in, yes, I know last season we beat Fulham, this season we've drawn. I know last season we beat Tottenham, this season we've drawn. But if you choose to look at the positive as well, last season we lost to Man City, we've beaten them. Last season we lost to Everton, we've beaten them. Now it's all about capitalizing on this result against Man City. Let's see how we do against Chelsea. Obviously, beating Man City and then we go lose to Chelsea and Sheffield, this doesn't really matter. But if you go and then beat Chelsea right away, it looks good. So I don't think we're putting ourselves in any danger at all. I think we are controlling games more, you're having more possession, we're not allowing the other teams too many chances. So I'm happy. Personally, I've not really agreed with people saying now you're not having a good season. I think we have a better squad. I'm like, yes, I don't feel like there's any game that we should really have lost. So I'm definitely okay with how we are playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me in the comment box below. Do you agree with Glenn? Do you think Arsenal are much better in terms of game management, in terms of being a title winning side? We are not giving away possession. We're not giving away, a lot of shots, a lot of chances to the opponent. And in the end, that has resulted Arsenal controlling games better and winning games that look far more comfortable with actually a lesser scoreline. So I'll talk about that Everton game at the Goodson Park. It was a 1-0. We all agree, but it looked so comfortable. It was so comfortable. You couldn't even think that Everton had a chance to come back in that game. Even the scare was the goal was gonna come late. And let's talk about that actually, Glenn. Liverpool can score goals for fun. So look at Darwin Nunes, you look at Cody Gakpo, you look at Mo Salah, you look at Diaz, you look at Dominic Soboslai. That is a lot of quality to give you a lot of goals, right? You look at Manchester City, if they get Kevin De Bruyne back, it's a guarantee. He's a cheat code. They're going to score a lot of goals, right? Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal. And this is the reason why I would write off Tottenham Hotspur. I do not think Tottenham will maintain the level of performance first and foremost, but I also think that they depend on Bissouma, and in the final third, goals are not going to be coming and draining as at Liverpool and Man City. Do you think at some point in time, Arsenal will be affected by that when those decisive goals don't come? For example, if that goal for Trossard at Everton didn't come, do you think that would actually? Do you think in the future that could affect us a little bit?
I don't think so. Like the games that we've played this season, 10 games. I
Yeah.
mean, you still scored 4 against Bournemouth, you still scored 4 against PSV, still scored 3 against Man United, 2 against Fulham, against Tottenham. I don't think we're struggling for goals. And here and there, we've not had Martinelli on the pitch, sometimes we've not had Saka on the pitch, sometimes Odegaard has had quiet games. Like when Odegaard doesn't perform and Saka is not on the pitch, yes, sometimes we do have a problem here and there. But when Odegaard is at the top of his game, we are going to score goals. So I rather win 1-0 against Everton than 4-3, to be honest. And the goal was always going to come. We were pressurizing them. And as you said, Everton never looked like they were going to score in that game. Against Bournemouth last week, they never looked like they were going to score. So as you said on the video that we did on my channel earlier, if you don't win, don't lose the game. That is how we're approaching these days. Like these days, we just don't lose games. I know you lost against Lens, but in the league, like when was the last time you saw us? Like we are so comfortable. Like we never lose games. Like back in the day, we'd lose 3 games in a row and then we win 1. And then you lose 3 games in a row, and then 2 losses here, 2 draws here. These days, we don't even lose games at all. You just like win or draw. So I don't think it will affect us. We were creating chances against Everton. Everton are playing really, that particular game, Everton are playing really defensive anyway. Like they literally parked the bus. They had like 10 men behind the ball. I don't think every team is going to play like that against us. Like I know there's a couple of games I literally cannot wait for. Like when 3 games, Brighton, Aston Villa, and Newcastle, because I really want to see how we do against those teams.
Yeah.
Brighton is not going to come to defend against you. And last season we played them, we scored 4 at their place. So if we play Brighton and then we end up with 0 goals, or we play Newcastle 0 and then we play Aston Villa, we don't score any goals, I would be worried. But a team like Everton would come to your play, defended the whole game. So 1-0 is okay. But the games where teams open up, like against PSV and Bournemouth, we scored goals. Against Tottenham, we scored a couple of as well, or they scored for us, whichever way, but we still scored 2+ goals. So I'm not worried about that. All the games we've won them differently. Some we've scored early, like against Nottingham, we allowed them back in the game. Bournemouth, PSV, comfortable. Everton 1-0. Some games you're going to need a penalty to win. We won being with 10 men against Crystal Palace. So for me, I'm just looking at the positives right now. Arsenal back in the day, I'm telling you, Crystal Palace, we get a red card, we are not going to win that game. These days, we got a red card in that game, and I was so comfortable. I was like, yes, bring Jurrien Zinchenko.
For some reason, when we go a man down, these days I'm confident. Like, I'm really confident. I believe we can still go and win games. Even if we concede a goal, like it's 2-0 and we concede 1, I still believe in Arsenal. I still believe we are going to keep on going.
Yeah, for sure. So control. You have to control the game. As Anu says in the chat, thank you for supporting both channels. By the way, Anu says, I think Arsenal are more mature this season. Absolutely. Like a game like Man United last season. Man United last season away from home, we were 1-1. And then I think Ateta took off Zinchenko, someone, and brought in Martinelli as a left back, because we were like, let's win this game against Man United. And then they counter-attacked us and scored twice. Against Tottenham and Man City, saw us approaching that differently. Listen, if we don't win, let's not lose. Let's look for one chance, 2 chances, but let's not expose ourselves. So personally, the only game that has annoyed me this season is Fulham, because they were down to 10 men, and I felt like we'd have controlled that better, maybe keep it at 2-1 and just win the game. That's the only game that really annoyed me. I was not annoyed at Everton, Crystal Palace. Also good 1-0 wins. We were down to 10 men. Everton were packing the bus. So I've only been annoyed with one game this season, and it's because we made a couple of mistakes in those matches.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, talk to me in the comment box below. What do you think about Arsenal this season? Anu says we are more mature, and we're going to be debating that. Have we become better? You look at players like Fabio Vieira; they're much better physically, mentally. So are Arsenal much better in terms of maturity, in terms of emotional capacity? Do you think that actually guarantees the title? Glenn, last season the title was decided in the last days of the season. 248 days, we were on top. Man City, in the later days, in the later stages of the competition, they came and blew us away. It looks like the way the season is the toll and the turning stand is taking. It looks like City are still going to go back there, right? Because in the next fixtures, Arsenal can still run away really on top. 7 points, 5 points, 6 points. Do you think we will create a huge difference, a huge point gap between us and Man City, like 20, right? By the time we get in April, or do you think we will be close in April, and this time Arsenal will just have to be more mature, and get through it? Because for me, that's what Liverpool did. Liverpool, when they won the title against City, they ran away with it. Like, they really created a distance, and they blew their engines, they blew everything up, they ran away, and by the time Man City thought, let's catch up with them, it was too late. Do you think we need to do that? Do we need to run away and City kind of feel it is too late, or do you think we've got it in the we have enough minerals to actually go toe to toe with Man City up to deadline day?
I think we need to do that. Doing it is a different case, but we all know that Man City, usually the last 10 games of the season, they usually like win all of them. So we know that is a guarantee. So this time, yes, it will be interesting. I think we are going to get ourselves in the same situation where we're like 3 points, 4 points ahead of them, and then maybe one person has a game in hand here and there. I think we're going to get ourselves in the same situation. But as you said, the very next season that after Liverpool are fighting with the title with Man City, the very next season they went like 20 points ahead before the games were like called off because of COVID. They came back, they're already so fired. People are even saying just give them the title because they're so fired. I think you're going to have to do that this time around. I think you have to get to like just win. Then whenever Man City draw a game, we win. Whenever they lose a game, we win as well. We just need to go farther and farther ahead. Again, it also depends which competitions we are in those days. By March, April, Champions League or FA Cup. But I think that is what you need to do this time around. I'm sure if you're like April and you're like 2-3 points ahead of them, the nerves will come back. The nerves will come back. They're like, oh, this happened last season. The media, the media is always like, obviously talking about Arsenal all the time. They're like, yeah, they bought lead last season, they're going to do it again, the pressure, but this season, as I said, we've learned from last season. Maybe instead of 2 goals up against West Ham, don't just try and get a third and a fourth. You can control the game. Obviously, we were unlucky in a few situations last season, like
the penalties. Saka had not missed penalties last season,
like
and he missed
that penalty.
One. Yeah.
That Saka penalty, like Zinchenko, if he marked Trent better, it would have been 2-1 to Arsenal at Anfield. Like if Brentford's goal was called off correctly, like would have so we are unlucky a few times, and obviously losing Saliba and all that. So obviously if you get to that point and you don't have Saliba and Jesus and Saka and they're all injured, then it becomes different. But if all of those players are there, and we know how to approach games, 2 goals up in the second half, maybe take off Zinchenko, bring in Kivio, maybe take off Zinchenko, bring in Tomiyasu. I think we also missed Tomiyasu a lot last season. People still don't rate him, but I think we missed him a lot. Like those games where, like West Ham, Liverpool away, like those would have been games where you bring in Tomiyasu to just defend instead of Zinchenko. So I think this one would approach it better. Last one, we didn't have Declan Rice. And we are going to speak about the guy, but Jurrien and Timber could be back by then as well. So I'm hoping that we've the experience that or everything that we learned from last season will help us next season. But I'm hoping, I think that would be the best way, like to be like 10 points ahead of them. But I think we could find ourselves in a similar situation where it's 4 points, 3 points gap by then.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, in the comment box below, let's get into the conversation. Who is our biggest threat outside Man City for the title? Liverpool have started well, but Liverpool, I think the stubbornness of Jurgen Klopp has cost them points so far. Not playing a number 6, as simple as that. Anyone can say it. You play number 6, Liverpool are much better. And that works in our advantage, right? But also, clubs like Aston Villa, clubs like Brighton have started off well. Newcastle are bounced back. They have scored 8 already in a game this campaign. In my opinion, I would say I think Liverpool have the resilience and they have the quality to go all the way. I think Newcastle will definitely be affected at some point in time. They will be good, and I expect them to be part of the top 5, top 6. But I still think it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal outside Manchester City. I don't think Spurs will actually hold on, right? And I also don't think Arsenal are title favorites. I just don't see ourselves as title favorites. I think there is that kind of element in Jurgen Klopp that can, that has lived the experience, can run away with it. There is also that, City are always there, right? And we've got to respect them. They've done it for a long time. So, Glenn, shortly, are we title favorites? And if we're not title favorites and City don't win it, who do you think is the most likely club to stand in our way?
If it's not Arsenal or Man City, it's Liverpool. They have the experience. The coach has done it before. He's been close to doing it like 3 or 4 times versus Guardiola. They still have players there who fought for titles before and won things. Van Dijk, Robertson, Trent, Alisson, Salah, all of them are still there. Even though the likes of Henderson have left, they still have a lot of players who've been there. So I think Liverpool, because they have the experience, and I think they have the team. Although they concede a lot of goals, I still think like attacking wise, they're very good. Liverpool as well, though, they get injuries. So when Jota is out and Diaz is out again, maybe they could suffer a bit. But I think their problem was midfield, and I think they've improved it with Gravenberch and Endo, and Szoboszlai has been a very good signing for them. So I think Liverpool will be there. Tottenham, I can see people saying Tottenham are a threat, but I've also seen people saying Arsenal, they only had one good season. They're not going to be there. Then Tottenham have only had 8 good games. Then why are they going to be there? If Arsenal can't be there after having one good season, people were saying last season Arsenal have not proved themselves. They've never been up there for a full season. We were. So we can also say the same thing. Tottenham have not been there in a while, like since like 2016. Why should they be there as well? Tottenham are playing good, but I still want to see how they would do if they don't have Maddison or Son in the team. I've had Tottenham fans saying they are worried, like if they get an injury to Bissouma, they are not really sure about Højbjerg. If they get an injury to Son, who plays? So I think that is the Tottenham's problem. Yes, they have a good manager, but in terms of injuries, if they play and they keep all their players fit, then maybe they could be there. Diaz is there. If they're not right about Tottenham, I remember, was it last season? There's a season where I think it was last season around February. We did a show and we were talking about, are you worried about Man United? I remember telling you, nah, I'm not
Yeah,
worried about Man
yeah. And you
United.
are absolutely spot on, by the way. You are really
They
spot on.
they dropped off completely. So even now, I can just say I'm not worried about Tottenham. Yes, they've been okay, but even them, because people like saying, because I don't like when the media is a clean sheet against Man City, but apparently you were lucky. Arsenal were lucky not to lose against Tottenham. Arsenal were lucky in this game. Arsenal were lucky against Nottingham. But fine, Tottenham were lucky as well against Luton. Luton missed a wide open goal. It could have been 1-1.
Yeah.
They were lucky against Sheffield. They got 12 minutes and they scored 2 goals in the last minute as well. So
You are lucky
I,
against Liverpool as well.
they were lucky against Liverpool as well. So out of the 8 games, if you're saying Arsenal have been lucky in 4 out of the 8 games, Tottenham have been lucky in like 5 out of the 8 games as well. There's only like 2 games I've watched where I've been like, yeah, Tottenham are really good. Burnley away, and I think Bournemouth away, they played really well. So if you're saying Arsenal has been lucky against Man City, Tottenham have been lucky against Liverpool as well. You have to get your luck as well throughout the season. Every team has to be lucky. But by the time we get to I'm not even going to say January. By the time we get to December, I think we'll be like 6-7 points clear of them.
Thank you so much for watching. George says Liverpool, Tottenham, and Man City are all title favorites. Interesting there from you, George. I like that. I think it's. I mean, he's kept Tottenham in regard, and if of course, you cannot disregard them. You cannot take anything away from them. They've done well so far. They've really, really done very well. Jay Moti, we're going to be discussing the GLEN Timber one next. Do not worry, stay on the track. Ajen says Liverpool are on track. He's so magical too, right? Okay, Liverpool are on track. I love that. Okay, Anu says Cossy and Glenn, get this down today. If Arsenal top the league table, like with 7 points, Arsenal will win the league. Well, like we did last campaign, right? Like we did last campaign, Arsenal will win the league. I mean, we've learned a couple of lessons. I can't disagree with that. We've learned a couple of lessons, and maybe that could be the difference. Us not winning it last campaign could be the reason that we actually win it this campaign. It could be the reason. The reason. Michael says let's sign Toney, but I think the biggest threat is Liverpool and City probably. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tottenham is a threat now, says Obedi. For now, they are a threat. You cannot say that they're not. You really can't say they are not. Judge says our strikers are not clinical. Edin Ketia isn't performing at high levels. Jesus is good at pressing and dribbling, but can't guarantee you 15 goals as a main striker. We'll talk about the striker problem in the later part of the show. We should add some magic in January. Ivan, Toney, Pedro, the boys will bring the title, at home. Okay, thank you so much. And then Karim says, from Koidu City, that is Celerion. Arsenal are trying, but scoring. Okay, he says Arsenal are trying, but we need to sign a goal scoring machine in January. If only we are to win the title. All right. So we will be talking about the striker situation. We'll be talking about what Mikel Arteta is planning for January. Hit the like button for us. Subscribe to the podcast, and of course, make sure you are involving yourself. Right. Let's get into the big one, which is injuries, and of course, the one that we've got to start with is Jurrien Timber. So, Glenn, according to a few sources, Jurrien Timber could actually make an early return. We could have him in January, but then probably those are the earlier stages. We could have him in the later stages of the UEFA Champions League, and he could also be involved with the later parts of the Premier League title. How much of a boost would Jurrien Timber be if he comes back January, February?
Oh, huge boost! Like the day we got the news that Timber was injured.
Yeah.
I was crying. I actually shed a tear. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm actually crying. Football is making me cry. Players are getting injured and I'm crying because he had been so good. That Community Shield game against Man City and that first half against Nottingham, he was so good. We signed him. He was supposed to play as a centre back and as a right back. He was playing as a left back, and you wouldn't even have noticed. Like someone would have told you, like he had been signed as a left back.
I think it was, yeah, and you wouldn't even argue.
Yeah, I don't know who was playing on that side. I don't know if Mares had left by then. There's someone who played in the Community Shield. I don't know if it was Alvarez or someone playing on that right side. He dealt with them so well in that Community Shield game. absolutely fantastic, and that is one of the main reasons why we were like able to get that game to 1-1 and draw that game against Nottingham as well. In the first half, we looked so comfortable. Timbo's so good on the ball.
Yeah.
He looks very comfortable in terms of passing, and you know, imagine a defense. So you have, I know Zinchenko is very good going forward and all that. You know, Tomiyasu is like, imagine having a defense there, like when you're trying to protect a lead and you have Ben White, Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, and Tomiyasu. Like, no one is going to get past that. And
Yeah, it's like a replica of having of what Manchester City have at the moment.
mm,
Gvardiol, Diaz, Kyle Walker, Stones, and then Nathan Ake.
yeah, and Akanji as well. So
And Akanji
like
as well, yeah.
having center backs who can also play as fullbacks, like we do, like Ben White and Timber as well. Absolutely fantastic. So Timber, I definitely miss him. Right now, obviously, we've still not. Okay, I actually missed him, but I mean, we've not really been in a situation where you're like, okay, if Timber's here, or this and that. But yes, it would have been absolutely fantastic if he was there. But we still have Gabriel, we still have Saliba, we still have Ben White, we still have Zinchenko, who are playing really well. But the truth is, we are still short in that position. Like we only have 6 defenders. If you want to count
Yeah.
Cedric, it's 7 defenders. So usually people have 8, like
I,
left
I
back,
wouldn't
back.
really count Cedric for now.
Okay, so 6 defenders. So
Yeah.
you have a left back, and you usually have a left back and a backup, a right back and a backup, all that. So right now we only have 6 defenders. We have the main ones, the main 4, and then we have 2 others who can play several positions. Tomiyasu can play across all 4 positions, and Kivio can play across all 4 positions. So usually with Pep Guardiola usually doesn't like having a team of 30 players. Usually prefers, like I had someone saying, like a Man Stefan, Guardiola prefers like having 20 players in his team.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
going to use this one, you're going to rotate here and there. So right now it looks like we're going to take that approach. You're not going to have a player and a backup in every single position. Like Ateta wants to use like 20 players like throughout the season. So if Zinchenko needs a rest, Tomiyasu can play there. If Ben White needs a rest, Tomiyasu can play there. If it's Saliba needs a rest, you can play Kivio there. We saw him playing with Gabriel together last season. If it's Gabriel who needs a rest, Kivio can play there, or you can have Saliba and Ben White as centre back. So
Yeah.
you can rotate the whole back 6. You have like 5 players who can play multiple positions. So Timber definitely is missed, but getting him in that latter part of the season, it would be
It's
great,
perfect.
because last season I felt like many of our players were tired by the time it got to March.
Yeah.
You know, Man City in September, they might not even play De Bruyne the whole of September, and then he
Yeah.
played in October, November. By the time you get to February, De Bruyne is fresh. You find Akanji is fresh, Walker is fresh. They've only played like 15 games.
Well,
But for
let me tell you.
Arsenal,
Let me tell you something very interesting. Last season, Manuel Akanji is the only centre back for Man City to have played 16 games in the Premier League. The rest of them played less than 16. That is how that is how good this guy is good at rotation.
exactly. So for us, by the time we get to that point, since we don't have Timber, I think Saliba will have missed maybe one.
Yeah.
Gabriel, obviously, if you don't count the first 4 games, he'll play in every single game. So by the time you get to March, a lot of the players would have played a lot of games. So another benefit is, I think Tomiyasu is going for the Asian Cup in January.
Mm.
So he's going to be if Tomiyasu is not there, it becomes a problem. That is,
Yeah.
I know the most important players are players like Saliba and Rice, but I think Tomiyasu as well has to be there, because it's like our rotation option. We need to defend. Tomiyasu is there. If we need a right back, Tomiyasu is there. If you need a left back, maybe even goalkeeper, Tomiyasu is there. Like, he can play in every single position. And we saw the other day, like these days, Tomiyasu is even playing as an inverted midfielder, an inverted striker. Like, I saw him going like to the striker position the other day and basically helping us create that chance. Absolutely fantastic. But if Timber is there, because Tomiyasu is going in January, I think he helps us a lot, because he's another player who can play in a lot of different positions. He had settled in perfectly in the Arsenal team. Like, by the time we got to August, people were saying Timber has been better than Rice in terms of signing. So imagine right now, if Timber was there and he's better than Rice, that means we have an absolute gem of a defender. So that allows us to rotate between Zinchenko and Timber, and maybe use Tomiyasu on the right back position more and all that. So I think Timber would be a huge return.
Yeah. Listen, what I
And for
think
us,
is
hopefully gets back during that period, because
yeah, what I think is um it was kind of a blow to Mikel Arteta, and maybe it's one of the reasons why we have not had that fluidity and that fluency that we're asking for as fans. The good football, the reason maybe Arsenal are not clicking yet is because we have introduced a new system, and Mikel tried to introduce a new system this campaign. And that system depended on players like Timber, Rice, and the new roles he created and the new positions. So when Timber gets injured, it means that you've got to find a player who can give you what Timber gives you, or you have to revert to what we played last campaign. And for me, it looks like now of a hybrid, more of a hybrid, what we had the last campaign and what we did when Timber was around, right?
Yeah.
It feels like more of a hybrid. So if he comes back, I think Arsenal will eventually. I don't know whether Mikel will stick with what he's playing now, or he will now graduate to what he wanted to play with Timber and Rice. But I think we'll play much better football, and it will allow us attack better. Because what he wants, Mikel, is to have that defensive unit strong. He wants to have that assurance that the team is defending well. It has the ability to defend well, and after that, then you can concentrate on going and getting the goals, knowing that even if you do not score, or even if you score one, you can actually win the game. So I think he's a very important player. And also, I mean, it depends on the ambitions of the club. Where do we want to be in terms of the Champions League, and where do we want to be in terms of the Premier League? If Arsenal want to go semi-finals, Champions League, um, title challenges, Premier League, he's going to be vital. He's going to be vital because there are those games you play, quarterfinals of the Champions League, hard games to win. Even if you're playing Milan, even if you're playing, if I think even if you played Copenhagen on the semi-finals of the Champions League, it would be a hard game.
Yeah.
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 So I think that is when it comes in. And like you rightly also put it, it was that drop off in terms of fitness, in terms of ability, in terms of the tired legs, the lack of legs, the lack of concentration that actually beat us. And if you could just swap players, if you could swap out Rob Holding last season and put in Jurrien Timber, it's a different game. It's a different team. If you could swap out
Yeah.
Partey
Yeah.
in those games where he didn't play well and you put in Declan Rice, it's a different team and it's a different game. So look, I agree with you. I really think Timber is gonna be like a new addition when he comes back, and I'm also quite surprised that he's going to be coming back a little bit earlier than expected. But probably that is the advantage, right? That is
Yeah.
really the advantage. Um, we might not get affected earlier on. Okay, we're gonna talk about those injuries that have come, but we might not get affected a lot. But later, when these players have been hit with injuries, when some of their minds are focused now on the Euros, that is when we will be affected. That is when we'll actually feel the pressure. But let's talk about the general injury crisis actually that we have been through, overcome, and been through again. What do you think is the problem? Why do you think we are picking up these injuries that we didn't have last campaign? Because Gabriel Martinelli for the whole of last campaign literally was all right. Saka was all right. Odegaard was all right. It was Alexander Zinchenko who was, in and out of the sick bay. Do you think it's too much, too much minutes? Do you think it's the lack of rotation? Do you think it was the World Cup? Or do you just have a question for the medical team?
No, I don't have a question for the medical team. I think it's a lot of games. Those players that's getting injuries, the likes of Saka and Martinelli, they've played so many games. These days, Martinelli plays for Brazil as well. Saka plays every single game for Arsenal, every single game for England, even if it doesn't matter. Declan Rice as well plays every single game for England as well. So, like, he came to Arsenal, he has an injury all of a sudden. Thankfully, didn't keep him out for too long. So I think it's just the volume of games they are playing, too many. Because if you look at the players that don't play a lot of games, like Ben White, he doesn't go for the international games. Like, he's always fit. Touchwood, hopefully, he's always fit. Like, the players that don't play a lot of games, like in terms of their countries and everything, they are usually fit, like the likes of Ben White, as I've mentioned. So I think it's the volume of games. That is why we need to use every single player in the squad. Now, that is why I don't agree with people saying, sell Fabio Vieira, sell Havertz, sell Nketiah. It doesn't matter. No, they're going to help us this season. Saka is not going to play every single game. There is games where if Jesus is not there, will Jesus be fit for the whole season? If Jesus and Odegaard are not there, then the players that you're like, yeah, get rid of them, they're going to have to come and play. And if we've killed their confidence completely and we think they're terrible and they're useless and all that, they're not going to help us. So those players are going to play a key role. Every single player is going to play a key role. Already this season, whether people like it or not, Havertz He helped us the other day. He got an assist. He got an assist against Man City. He's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why he won that game.
Yeah.
In Nketiah, it's not like, yes, I know he missed chances against Crystal Palace and everything, but against Crystal Palace, we won that game because Nketiah made a good run and he got a penalty. He
And a
scored
penalty.
against Nottingham.
He's
So
won two. Has he won 2 or 3 this season?
he's won 2 penalties against
Two
Bournemouth as
penalties
well.
already. Yeah.
So everyone is going to play a role. Even if I know Nketiah is not Osimhen, I know he's not Toney, I know Havertz is potentially at the moment is not worth 65 million and all that. I know that. But I'm saying in terms of helping us, even if it means 15 minutes coming on and play a role in the Champions League or maybe in the Carabao Cup, everyone is going to help us. So at the moment, they are Arsenal players. When you get to the transfers, if you don't want them, then you can talk about that at that moment.
Yeah.
But as of now, all of them are like Arsenal players. So we can't just depend on Jesus to play every single game. Nketiah is going to play. We can't depend on Havertz or Odegaard to play every single game. Fabio is going to come on. Smith Rowe, I'm not right. Smith Rowe is going to get his minutes as well. He's going to play a lot of minutes. Defensively, everyone is going to be used. So for me, I'm okay. Like in terms of, for your question, in terms of injuries, I think it's because of the volume of games. So everyone is
Yeah.
going to be needed.
Yeah. I've also said that when you have a World Cup mid-season, and then there is no time for players to get that enough rest. So they come from the World Cup, they straight away run back to the Premier League, and now pre-season, and now they have the Euros as well. In this summer, it means many of them are not going to rest. And now the Champions League is going to be expanded, and now the Premier League games have been expanded. There's no way you're going to do away with injuries. And many people said, "Well, Cossy, look, so many players have played in the World Cup, and they didn't get injured." And I told them it's just a matter of time. And I won't be surprised that we might see shorter careers due to injuries with all this new version of the World Cup, World Cup, for clubs, World Cup, and then new version of the Champions League, new version of this, new version of that. I wouldn't be surprised to see as many injuries in football and players like retiring early due to injuries. But so there is a story, and this one is, I think, 1 day old. Trossard has pulled his hamstring and is pulled out of the Belgian national team. Saka has pulled out of the England national team. We do not know. We don't know the problem with Saka yet, because again, Mikel says it's a question for the medical team. But there's no way we are getting information from the medical team until they publish on the website. And then Saliba has also pulled out of the French games due to a toe injury. Which one of them is most scary, and which one would you think is irreplaceable? Saka, Trossard, Saliba.
I think in terms of irreplaceable, it's Saliba. But I think
Okay.
the one that worries me is Trossard, because I think Saliba is not that serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, it's great to play for your country. It's a great honor. But we always see it with all these other teams. International break comes up, Rashford is out. Shaw is not available. Or Sterling is not there. James is not available. And after the international break, they played the Premier League game.
Yeah.
So we also have to do that with our players. Listen, Saliba has not been fit for a long time. Don't go for the international team. Wait for Arsenal because we have so many important games coming up. Listen, Gareth Southgate, Rashford, Sterling, they are all better than Saka. You don't need to pick Saka.
Absolutely.
Play them for England. Saka is not good enough for England. Let him stay at Arsenal. He doesn't have to play for England. Play Rashford. Rashford is better. Play him. You don't have to play Saka. So let our players rest. I'm happy. Like whenever Ben White doesn't go, I'm like, yeah, Ben White is fit for resting for 2 weeks. Saka is fit and all that. So Saliba, in terms of how important Saliba is, obviously a worry. We've seen you can win games without Saka, and we can play Jesus there, we can play Nelson there and all that. But in terms of defensively, Saliba has to be there, as you've mentioned, quoting Gary Neville, he has to be there for us to win. There's no problem with resting him 1 game, 2 games, like against Sheffield United, no disrespect to them. But after Chelsea, we have West Ham we have Sevilla in the Champions League, and then we'll have Sheffield and then West Ham in the Carabao Cup. Like that game against Sheffield, you can be like, listen, Sheffield are not going to attack you that much. Yes, they can put in those crosses and everything, but listen, Kivio, Gabriel, play this one. Let Saliba rest. Maybe Zinchenko rest. Then maybe even play the Carabao Cup. We also want to win that one. So there's a way you can rotate. Now, the one that I'm worried about is Trossard. Because this is like his 3rd injury or 4th injury already the last 2 months. And I'm one of those scared. If I was a manager, I'm one of those scared managers. Like if we are 2 goals up, take off Partey, take off Martinelli, take off Trossard because of their injury record. I'm usually
Yeah.
worried about. Trossard, there's a lot of times, even last season, there's a lot of times Trossard was subbed off because he has a knock, or he has, even during preseason, I think there's a game you're subbed off because he has a knock. So you have to manage Trossard's minutes. I mean, there's like 5 players in our team, unfortunately, that you have to manage their minutes. Zinchenko, now Saka's joined up on that list. Saliba is there. Partey is there, Jesus is there. The only players who can play every single game without being wide, they're like Ben White, maybe Gabriel, maybe Declan Rice, or Odegaard, Havertz. Those ones can play every single game without being wide. But there's like 5 or 6 players where you're like, you need to manage their minutes. So Trossard is the one I'm worried about, because already this season is like, that is like the 3rd injury. So hopefully it's not that serious. Hopefully it's a way of keeping him out of the international games. But if we come back and Trossard is not available, then there's a slight worry, because some games, like we saw against PSV and against Everton, he is very good. Like, he can help us win the game. So we have to manage his minutes. Now that Martinelli is back, we have other options. Nelson can play there, Smith Rowe can play there. Just manage their minutes. This one plays for one half, this one comes on the next game, this one starts, the other one comes off. We just need to manage their minutes better. Don't play everyone for like 10 games in a row. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, guys. Talk to me in the comment box below. Do you think injuries will fumble our chances to win the title? It's a big question for the comments. Do you think injuries will fumble our chances to win the title? Man City are a team that rarely pick up major injuries, and it comes from the rotation of the manager and managing of minutes. Like I said, Manuel Akanjila's campaign played 16 games in the Premier League. He was the player at centre back and in defense who played the most number of games for Man City, who appeared in the most number of games for Man City. So rotation and management, it is actually, it's actually very key. Mr. Marky
As
says injuries are
Yeah,
always part of it. Yeah,
I was going to talk about that one,
yeah,
because it is true.
yeah,
Chelsea have a lot of injuries.
yeah,
Nkunku is
absolutely.
injured. Chukwuemeka was injured. James is injured. Chilwell, Man United, a lot of their defenders are injured. Man City as well. They never get injuries, but even now, De Bruyne is injured. Stones has been injured, and I think De Bruyne is out until like December. That is like
Yeah.
5 months out. So yes, injuries are always part of the game. That is true. So it's just about how to deal with it. But if you can deal with it, if you've won a game and you don't need to play in that particular game, players like Saliba don't have to play every single game, because those ones have to be fit until like the end of the season. So we just have to deal with it. Hopefully our bench helps us.
Yeah. Just the last one is say yes or no. Do you think we are in an injury crisis?
No.
No, absolutely. So Glenn says we're not in an injury crisis. And let's get to January. Let's talk about that period where it is crazy and everyone thinks that the club will splash a lot of cash just to end up splashing 5 million, 6 million, at times even less than that. But Glenn, first and foremost, before we get into, you've seen the comments already. People want Osimhen in January. People want Ivan Toney in January. We're gonna talk about that. Thank you so much, Femi, for opening up this segment. How important is this coming January transfer window to the end of the season for Arsenal? How do you think it will be?
Very important. Now, January transfer windows have never been that big for us.
Yeah,
I remember 2018, maybe we bought Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan. Aubameyang was a big buy. Last time we bought Trossard, and that was like a backup, second option, plan B kind of signing. But if you take a look at the other Januaries, you find us January where we signed Cedric and Pablo Mari. You'll find us January where we signed Karlstrom. You'll find a
yeah.
January where we didn't do anything. So usually
Yeah,
sign like
there's a
even
January where we brought in, was it Dennis Suarez?
Dennis Suarez. He never
Yeah.
played any game. So you've
Is
had
he one
some
of the
terrible
worst
January
signings we
transfer.
have ever had in this club?
Not even one of the worst. Yeah, worst. He only played like
Yeah.
one game, so definitely worst signing. So there's a lot of January windows we've not done anything. But this time I feel like it's definitely going to be important, because if it gets to that January and you buy a player like a lot of teams have been looking for, and you make a statement signing, that will be big. Anyone, Osimhen, Toney. Now Neto is good, but Neto gets a lot of injuries. That is my worry.
Yeah.
Neto's been injured for the last like 3 years. So unless he's 100% fit as a backup, that would be great. But if you get a statement signing, I want a midfield. If you can get a midfield and a striker, that would be good. Like 2 signings, at least that would be big for us. So again, it depends. Cause another thing, I think AFCON is in January. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
in January or the.
AFCON is in January.
Wow. So Party is going to go.
Mm.
El Nene is going to go. Tomias is going to go for the Asian Cup. So right away, you're going to lose three players. So right away, we are going to need a midfielder there. So in either way, even if Partey was there, I still needed a midfielder. So you're going to need a midfielder there, and hopefully you can get a forward player. For me personally, I still feel like the kind of striker I'm looking for maybe two different kind of strikers.
Mm.
Sign one, but two kind of there's a word I'm looking for, it has disappeared. But either striker like, as I've always said, a striker like a Giroud, a tall striker where if it's in the last minute, we can put in those crosses. Sometimes we put in so many crosses, and Jesus and Saka are not really those players who can jump for headers. If you can get a striker like that, you can bring off the bench, that would be good. Or a striker who can also play like on the wings, like players like uh, in Colomboani, I think, is played forward and plays on the wing. Even Thuram at and Inter Milan, he can play forward. He can
Yeah,
play as a 10.
yeah.
He can play on the left side. Players like that. If you get like an Osimhen, that is fine. I want two players in January. I think it's very, very key because I think Man City will buy a player or two in January, and maybe Tottenham will strengthen as well. Maybe Liverpool strengthen as well. Now, where I don't agree is you can say that without saying I don't think Jesus can score you 10 goals in a season. No, he can't. He was injured
Yeah,
for 4 months last season and he still scored 11 goals. I'm
yeah,
sure he'd have gotten 16 or 17. And the kind of striker that you have in Jesus, he does so much for our team.
yeah. So much on
And
it.
we don't always play him as a center forward anyway. Sometimes he comes to the number 10 position. Sometimes he plays on the right side. So he's not going to score that many goals. But it will be good to add to Jesus and Ketty just to have a different option for sure. But I need a midfield as well because Partey is going in January for the African Cup.
Okay, so with the options, I think we have a couple of positions and we have a couple of options. We are not short of options. Let's start off with that midfield position, like you've said. We've looked at Quintum Timber in midfield, and Quintum Timber is not a player that most of us have actually heard about or researched about. But what I would say is he plays more as a DM CM, not attacking midfielder, DM CM. So Rice, Lokonga, Partey. That is Quintum Timber. Would you prefer a player like Quintum? He's 22 at the moment, so younger than Declan Rice, doesn't bring in that kind of experience, comes in just to fight for his position, raw, has the legs, and very, very fresh. Or would you prefer, like what we did last January, a player like Jorginho, a player with that experience, a bit of pedigree, someone who can actually mix it up. Like if we went and brought in a player um like Douglas Lewis. Now Douglas Lewis, not that old guy, but he's so experienced. Like you would have signed experience at a very young age, just like we did with Declan Rice. What do you prefer? Experience, pedigree to see us through the season, or young one for the future, young one for the project.
For that January one, I think for the future one, I usually prefer it in the summer. But
Mm.
for January, when it's crucial time, I prefer having like experience someone like a Douglas Luiz, as you mentioned. Now, I do follow Quinton Timber because I play Champions League fantasy, and
Oh,
he is in my team. He is
okay.
in my team, and I watched the final game, like looking at how he played, not because he was going to join us, but because I had him in my team. So I was watching and I was like, yeah, this guy gets a lot of interceptions as well, just like Declan Rice in midfield. I think he scored maybe a goal and an assist this season, so he is good. It would be good. Like imagine having two twins in the team, like a Raphael and Fabio at Man United. Like maybe sub one off and bring on the other without the
Yeah,
referee
bring on the
noticing.
other. Yeah.
You can do without the referee noticing. So it would be good. But I would prefer for January transfer window when it's business time. That time you could be in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. The
Yeah.
FA Cup is just getting started. You could be awaiting, or you would know which team you're going to play in the last 16 of the Champions League. So Premier League, you could be first, you could be second, you could be battling it out. So you need veterans, as Moti says. You need veterans for that January transfer window. Players like
Mm.
Quentin Timber and players for the future, players who get linked from Brazil and all that. Summer transfer window where you like test them for 2 months during the preseason. But January, it's not time for testing. January, you're coming to play. Party is not there. Tomias is not there. You're coming to play, and maybe you have a couple of injuries. You need to play. So I think more experience. Someone like Douglas Luiz, as you say. If there's one player that
Well, Glenn has, signed off for a little bit. I think his internet is lacking a little bit, but of course we'll get to him when he comes back. We're still discussing what do we need in January as a club. What do Arsenal need in January? We've talked about Quinton Timber, the midfield. I mean, Glenn raises a big point in the midfield because again, you don't have Partey, you don't have Mohamed El Neni, and we might not have Takara Tomias as well. He might be leaving for the Asian Games, and that means that in the end, Arsenal will be left with a whole gap, like a big gap. So Quinton Timber, which players do you think Arsenal should be looking at in January? But personally, I want us to talk about the two players, Pedro Neto and Ivan Toney. We've talked about Ivan Toney before, and I think it's one of the players that we will see on the market in January. He's one of the players that we will definitely see on the market in January. He is good. He's going to be available. He's going to be back. Should we spend 80 million on Ivan Toney, right? So Glenn is back. Let's get into the Ivan Toney debate straight away. Glenn, welcome back. I was talking about Toney and the demands. 80 million is what Brentford are asking for. If we cannot get a midfielder, of course, again, our transfer strategy is very, very strong. We prefer to sign players for the longer term rather than the shorter term, and we prefer to sign players that we have looked at for a longer period of time. Ivan Toney, I would say, is in that bracket of players that we have looked at for a longer period of time. 80 million, January. What do you think?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
Awesome. So I really like Ivan Toney mainly because of how like Raya usually hits the ball to him at Brentford and usually wins every like second ball
Yeah.
and every long ball in the air. So that is one reason that I really love Ivan Toney. I feel like it gives us something different, like what I've been saying. Like if you put in across Ivan Toney, is there like a poacher. I know Nketiah can do the poaching stuff. I think Toney would be better in terms of that. The rebounds, just wait. Like the goal he scored against us, the offside goal he scored against us last season,
Yeah.
is very good, like being in those sort of positions. Um, like if I have Ivan Toney and Jesus in the team, who would I start? I'd still start Jesus. You know why? Jesus gives us a lot in terms of coming back to midfield combination play. Toney could be that. He could help. He could learn that in terms of combining Martinelli and Saka and all that. That would be good. If there was a way to fit both of them in the team, that is absolutely fine. But where I don't agree is people usually say like Ivan Toney is like 10 times better than Jesus. That's not true. Like people say Ivan Toney can score 20 goals in the Premier League. That is true, but if we compare, you know how many penalties Ivan Toney scores in a season? He scores like 8, 9 penalties in a
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So
I
if
mean, last season he converted many penalties.
many,
Of the 20 goals he scored, I think a minimum of six penalties.
so if Jesus was taking Arsenal penalties as well, we'd have been talking 17, 18 goals as
Yeah.
well. So there's that. So if you compare in terms of number of goals, remember that Toney scores a couple of free kicks. I think he scored like 2 free kicks last season and like 6, 7 penalties. And he always takes them. Even if he misses, he takes the next one. So
Yeah.
there's that. So in terms of goals, I don't think it's fair comparing like Jesus scores this and Toney scores this. Toney takes a lot of penalties for Brentford and Jesus doesn't take penalties for Arsenal. So there's that. But in terms of overall play, I think Toney will bring something different that we don't have. We have that
Yeah.
combination play, and a player who gets into a lot of ground duels like Jesus. He can play on the right side, can play on the left side, can play as a striker. That is good. And Nketiah, as we say, is not the best finisher, but he will work for you. Like I watched Nketiah against Brentford in the Carabao Cup, and this last game against Man City, he runs a lot. Like you never see him. I don't think you can ever say Nketiah is lazy. I saw someone the other day in a comment section saying Nketiah is lazy. And I was like, nah, there's
Yeah.
no chance. Like he
Yeah.
runs a
That is
lot.
slander. That is
He
slander.
ran, yeah, he runs a lot. So that is one thing that Nketiah is 100% good at. But Toney would bring something that we don't have. He'd add the Premier League experience. He's now played there for 3 years. Number two, the aerial duels. So you will win a lot of them. So if you have like Ivan Toney and Havertz on the pitch at the same time, you can win a lot of headers in the final third,
Yeah.
crosses. Maybe with Ivan Toney, we might win a lot of trophies because we'll never miss penalties. Having Ivan Toney and Jorginho in the
So
team, we'll never
you
miss.
give him either the first penalty or the last one.
Yeah, and the last one. And then you have Jurrien and Odegaard there. You're never going to miss any penalties. So
Yeah.
there's that as well. But I think it brings something different, like the physicality in the box, the poacher, the aerial duel. So I definitely take him. And it looks like he wants to play for Arsenal. I like players who want to play for Arsenal. So I would definitely take him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a conversation to be had with Ivan Toney whether he's a risk. You know, if you signed Andy Carroll, if you looked at the signing of Andy Carroll by Liverpool, I would say signing a player like Ole Watkins, signing a player like Ivan Toney could be in that basket, right?
Hmm.
Uh, They've done well in the championship. They've done well at Brentford and all these small sides, but the level of competitiveness and the demands and the pressure is very very different. And for you to perform at a club like Arsenal, it takes it takes a special character. It takes a very very special personality. So do you think it's kind of very very risky, especially the 80 million they're asking for? Do you think it could come at Arsenal and genuinely become a flop? Again, our system could actually not not be better for him. We'll have to change our system to suit his demands. So do you think it's more like a risk as compared to if you went and signed probably if you signed him for around 50, 60?
I think you'd hit the ground running because of that experience. The worry is, as you said, the way we play.
Yeah.
The way Arsenal play, that's the problem with bringing players like Osimhen. Yes, it would be good having a player like Osimhen scoring 100 goals in a season, but the way we play, especially rotation, Odegaard is on the right side. Sometimes he's the number 8. Sometimes he's the
Yeah,
10.
yeah, yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
is on the right. Sometimes it's Nketiah on the left. Sometimes Martinelli is on the left. Sometimes the center forward. Will Osimhen do that for you? Can we ask him, okay, go on the left for 5 minutes and then go on the right for 10 minutes? I'm not sure about that. So in terms of changing the system, that would be a problem. But I think coming to Arsenal, you have to. I don't think it'd be. I don't know if it'd be a starter right away because that means dropping Jesus. As I said, Jesus is a
Yeah.
starter for me. I've never dropped him to the bench. It depends. For 80 million, I think is worth that price. If you are talking 110, 120, that is
Yeah,
too
yeah,
much.
that's
But
yeah,
80,
that's probably more.
70, I
Yeah.
think that would be good. The only worry for now is fitness. Yes, I think it's training. I think it's training right now, but in terms of match fitness, that is my only worry because he'll have gone like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months without playing. So I don't know if he's going to hit the ground running right away. You compared players like Watkins, I'd very quickly take. If he gave me the chance to take Watkins, I'd take him so quickly. Like
Mm,
the
mm.
pacing behind and all that in the finishing, very good. And before I went off, I was just talking about McGinn. I'd mentioned McGinn. If you give me a midfielder like McGinn, I'd take him. So the only worry about Toney is the fitness because he's not played for like 8 months and we'll need him right away. That
Yeah,
would
true.
be my only worry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could come in as a risk. Look, just slightly to answer Ronnie's comment. Can you compare for me Tony and Balogun? Well, I think. Look, listen. It's a comparison that we shouldn't have at the moment. But just for you, I think Florian Balogun is Victor Osimhen type, and I think Ivan Toney is more like I would even say he's in the Erling Haaland type because with Balogun you have players you have him as a player that doesn't want to hold the ball. I mean, his hold up play is not something you can rely on, but he's going to make those runs for you, and you have to find him. You absolutely have to find him because he's a penalty runner. He's a penalty entry runner, and I think he's the opposite of Edin Ketia. He's the opposite of Ivan Toney. He doesn't have that hold up. That is not what he does. What he literally does is he will give himself space as a center forward in the penalty area or race. If you've seen it with Victor Osimhen, much of the time, what he does as a striker is he gives himself space, in the penalty area. He gives himself space, as a striker against defenders, and you can easily find him in space. Who is the better striker for me in terms of type? I think Tony scores all kinds of goals. Like, to be honest, he doesn't run a lot, so probably wouldn't score for you a counter attack. Balogun would score for you a counter attack, in my opinion. But I would still take Ivan Tony. I think he scores more types of goals as compared to Florian Balogun. But also, Balogun is still a little bit younger, and his career is going to be shaped by many managers. It's going to be shaped by a couple of factors. He might run into a Diego Simeone, who will turn him to a different striker. He might, run into Zidane. He will turn him to a different striker. He might run into Xavi. He might turn him into a Robert Lewandowski, and a couple of things, right? So for me personally, I would say Balogun is kind of different in a way that you're looking at Osimhen, right? You're looking at the Osimhen type. And with Ivan Toney, his hold up play, physicality, he's more like Mitrovic. He's more, that is the type of striker. More like Mitrovic. He'll score for you a header, score for you a penalty. His right foot, left foot as well, and his hold up is very good. Mikel Antonio as well. They're in the same bracket. They're in the same bucket, right? Probably Erling Haaland is a gem kind of, but if you wanted to harmonize it down and bring it down, that's what I would say. Okay, Augustine says get Osimhen and win the league. Does he win us the league? It's a huge question. Does he win us the league? Probably. Big up to you, Glenn, for being on the show. Love you, bro. Thank you so much. Isaac says I would like Ateta to surprise you, right, with the transfer of Pedro Neto in January. Surprise you. I mean, do we need a right player, a right attacker? We absolutely do. There's no question about that. I'll be surprised if Arsenal literally did not think about a right-sided attacker. Even if we don't sign one, we've got to think about one. I think we will end the show at that. Glenn, Pedro Neto, loved by Arsenal fans. He's electric. Has had a very good start to the campaign. Just in a minute, do you think it would be again another genius of a transfer window?
As I said, the only worry about Neto is injuries. He's picked
Yeah,
up like 2 or 3 big injuries the last 2 years. I've watched him the last few games for Wolves. I think it was Joe Gomez. Is it Joe Gomez? He ripped
yeah,
apart Gomez when they played Liverpool. That first half, he ripped him apart. Even the other day when they played Man City, and they beat Man City, I think he
yeah,
ripped apart Nathan Ake.
yeah.
Like, he's very good. He's very quick.
And,
Like,
and
when he's
again,
on
I
the
think it
pitch.
was against Aston Villa as well in the last game.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Electric
And he played on the left side against Liverpool for a few minutes, and he played on the right side
on the
against
right
Man
side. Yeah,
City. So he can play in a couple of positions as well. So I do love Pedro Neto. It depends on the price, I guess. If you tell me 60 million, I'd be like, those injuries are too much. Like if it's something like a Trossard, 20 million, 25 million bargain,
yeah,
you get him right away. So I would take him, but it depends. But that for me, I still feel like if you get another kind of player like a Declan Rice, you win the league more
yeah.
than if you get another winger, if you get another striker, if you get another player like Declan Rice there, and you just don't concede goals. If you get 1 or 2 goals on the other side, which we have Saka, we have Martinelli, we have Jesus, I'll still be confident.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for watching the show. It is me, Cossy, and Glenn right on the Total Access Show. We've been live for almost an hour and 7 minutes. Of course, we've discussed a couple of things. Jurrien Timber is set to be back as early as January, and Arsenal could have him in the later parts of the Champions League if those stories are actually to be believed. Of course, we talked about the injury crisis and the impact and how to mitigate it. We've got to rotate. There's no question about that. We've talked about whether Arsenal are really big title champions and and contenders. Are we favorites? All those topics are in the show. If you've missed the earlier part, make sure you do watch it. You've been very good watchers, very good listeners as well. We'll speak to you right in the next one. For now, we are going to say have a blessed evening. See you right in the morning.